1 minute ago, it wasn't an opposition ambush. It wasn't a protest outside. It was something far worse for a Prime Minister. The Speaker. In the middle of a charged session with tempers already flaring, the authority of the House turned directly on Keir Starmer, and the chamber froze. Not with shouting, with procedure. A single ruling, a public rebuke delivered calmly and therefore devastatingly. MPs gasped, benches erupted, and within seconds order collapsed into chaos. Because when the Speaker asserts control against the Prime Minister, it's not just embarrassment, it's a signal. Stay with us, because what happened next exposed how fragile authority inside Parliament has become. 12:21 p.m. The chamber is already restless. Questions are sharper than usual, heckling louder, government benches tense. Then it happens. The Prime Minister rises to respond, not unusually, not dramatically, but the Speaker interrupts before the sentence finishes. The voice is firm, unemotional, final. "Prime Minister, that is not in order." Gasps ripple through the House, because this isn't a backbencher being corrected. This is the head of government being stopped publicly, unmistakably. 12:22 p.m. The rule is invoke. The Speaker cites standing orders, precise, procedural, impossible to argue with in the moment. The Prime Minister attempts to continue. The Speaker raises his voice, not shouting but commanding, "Prime Minister, sit down." That instruction lands like a hammer. Cameras catch it all, and in British politics, procedure is power. 12:23 p.m. BNCHES erupt, opposition MPs cheer, government MPs shout back. The volume spikes instantly. Someone yells shame, another shouts disgrace. The Speaker stands, and that changes everything. 12:24 p.m. The humiliation becomes undeniable. The Speaker addresses the Prime Minister directly, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. "You will answer the question put, or you will not answer at all." It's not personal, which makes it worse. Because it frames the moment as failure to comply, not disagreement. The Prime Minister nods stiffly, sits, doesn't speak. That silence is captured from every angle. 12:26 p.m. Parliament loses control. Order does not return. MPs sense blood. Questions fly out of turn. Points of order pile up. Shouting replaces structure. The Speaker repeatedly calls for order, bangs the gavel, once, twice, again. Nothing works. The House is no longer debating. It's unraveling. 12:29 p.m. The session collapses. The Speaker issues the ultimate threat. "If order is not restored, I will suspend the sitting." That threat alone confirms the scale of the breakdown. Because suspending Parliament is not routine. It's a last resort. 12:31 p.m. The damage is done even as order slowly returns. The moment has already escaped the chamber. Clips flood social media. Captions write themselves. PM slapped down, Speaker asserts authority, government loses grip. Political editors don't argue the framing. They amplify it. 12:45 p.m. Westminster reacts inside the corridors. MPs whisper urgently. One veteran MP says quietly, "That wasn't just a ruling, that was a warning." Another adds, "You don't get corrected like that unless patience is gone." 1:10 p.m. Downing Street scrambles, aides move fast. Damage control begins, but there is no denial available. The footage is clear. The ruling is on record. The humiliation is procedural, not rhetorical. And procedural moments cannot be spun away. 1:45 p.m. The Speaker's role is understood. Commentators explain the significance. The Speaker is neutral, above party, guardian of order. When the Speaker intervenes this forcefully, it signals one thing: the House believes control is slipping, not politically, procedurally. And procedure is the skeleton of democracy. 2:30 p.m. The question no one can ignore. By mid-afternoon, the narrative is locked. If the Prime Minister cannot command the chamber, how can he command the moment? This wasn't about one answer. It was about authority, asserted, challenged, and momentarily lost. 2:47 p.m. By the time MPs return to their offices, the question is no longer what happened, it's why now. Because speakers don't humiliate prime ministers on impulse. They endure pressure, they warn privately, they wait. And only when restraint fails do they act publicly. 2:55 p.m. The warnings that came before inside parliamentary offices, senior clerks quietly confirm what some MPs already suspected. The Speaker had warned the government multiple times in recent weeks. Not publicly, not theatrically. Privately, warnings about overlong answers, about drifting away from the question, about testing the patience of the chair. One clerk puts it plainly: the House was being treated like a platform, not a process. That distinction matters. Because Parliament tolerates politics, but it demands procedure. 3:10 p.m. A pattern, not a moment. Senior MPs begin connecting dots. This wasn't the first interruption, it was the first refusal. The Speaker didn't object to tone, he objected to defiance. A veteran MP explains it this way: once the chair says stop, you stop. If you don't, the House chooses who's in charge. Today the House chose, 3:30 p.m. Cabinet realizes the damage inside Whitehall, the mood hardens. This isn't a bad headline, it's a procedural scar. A senior minister admits privately, opposition attacks fade, Speaker rulings don't, because they enter the record. They're cited, they're remembered, and this one will be replayed every time authority is questioned. 3:55 p.m, the Speaker's position is clarified. Close observers note something critical. The Speaker did not apologize, did not soften his language afterward, did not brief to reassure. That silence confirms intent. This wasn't heat-of-the-moment irritation, it was deliberate enforcement. The Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, is known for patience. When patience runs out, it's because the line has been crossed. 4:20 p.m, opposition reframes the moment. Opposition MPs don't gloat loudly. They don't need to. They say things like, the Speaker acted correctly, rules matter, no one is above the House. Those sentences are devastating because they are irrefutable. They place the Prime Minister on the wrong side of neutrality. 4:45 p.m, the Prime Minister's inner circle debates response inside No 10, advisors split. One group urges a private call to the Speaker, conciliatory, respectful. Another warns, don't acknowledge it publicly, that legitimizes the narrative. A third voice cuts through, the damage isn't what we say. It's what the House saw. And the House saw this, the Speaker assert authority. The Prime Minister comply late. 5:15 p.m, backbench unease. GROWS government backbenchers field calls from constituents who watch the clip. Not angry calls, concerned ones. Why was he told to sit down? What did he do wrong? Is everything under control? Those are the worst questions because they imply doubt, not disagreement. 5:50 p.m. Procedure experts weigh in. Former speakers and parliamentary historians begin speaking publicly. Their verdict is unified. This was about defending the authority of the chair, not attacking the Prime Minister. That framing doesn't help the government. It isolates them, because if the Speaker was defending the House, then someone was challenging it. 6:30 p.m, the moment is fixed in history. The clip is now everywhere. Slow motion, subtitled, analyzed frame by frame. Political editors stop using words like gaffe or row. They start using rebuke, and rebukes change trajectories. 7:15 p.m, the unwritten consequence inside Westminster. MPs understand something the public rarely sees. After a Speaker draws blood like this, tolerance drops. Future answers will be cut shorter, future warnings will come faster, future mistakes will be punished more sharply. The margin for error shrinks, one MP says quietly. Once the chair asserts itself, you don't get the benefit of the doubt again. 8:00 p.m, the Prime Minister's authority is quietly reweighed. No votes are called. No confidence motions tabled, but something shifts. MPs begin watching the Prime Minister more closely, not for ideas but for composure. Because in Parliament, authority isn't just electoral, it's performative and procedural. And today, that performance cracked. The deeper problem: this wasn't about disrespect. It was about control of tempo. The Speaker slowed the Prime Minister down publicly. And once slowed, momentum is hard to recover, because Westminster is ruthless about one thing. If the House believes it must enforce discipline, it assumes discipline has already failed elsewhere. Where this leaves everything by nightfall, the humiliation isn't fresh, it's absorbed, which makes it more dangerous. The Speaker didn't shout. He didn't lecture, he didn't dramatize, he simply reminded everyone who runs the chamber. And when that reminder is aimed at the Prime Minister, the message isn't personal, it's institutional. 8:42 am. The morning after, Westminster doesn't buzz, it hums. Low voices, measured steps, MPs watching each other more closely than their phones. Because everyone understands what yesterday did, it didn't just embarrass the Prime Minister. It reset the balance inside the chamber. 8:55 am, the clip that won't die. The footage loops endlessly on breakfast television. The interruption, the instruction, the Prime Minister sitting down. Commentators stop speculating and start concluding. One says calmly, this wasn't chaos, this was enforcement. That distinction matters because enforcement implies repeatability. 9:20 am. Labour MPS private fear inside Labour offices. MPS exchange messages that all sound similar. Will this happen again? What's the new line? How tight is the Speaker going to be? That anxiety tells its own story. When MPs worry about the chair more than the opposition, discipline has shifted upward, away from the government. 9:45 am, the Prime Minister ADJUSDS in Downing Street, Keir Starmer is advised to recalibrate immediately. Not rhetorically, procedurally. Shorter answers, direct responses, zero deviation from questions. One aide says it bluntly. The Speaker is now the tightest variable in the room. That sentence would have been unthinkable weeks ago. 10:30 am, opposition senses opening. Opposition MPs prepare for the next session with precision. Not louder attacks, sharper ones. Questions are drafted to box answers tightly, knowing the Speaker will enforce relevance without hesitation. A shadow minister says privately, "We don't need to beat him, the rules will." 11:15 am, parliamentary clerks confirm the shift. Clerks quietly brief party whips. The Speaker intends to apply standing orders strictly and consistently. No exceptions, no leniency for seniority. That confirmation spreads fast, because it means yesterday wasn't a one-off, it was a line-drawing exercise. 12 p.m, the psychological damage SCTS in authority in Parliament is partly psychological. Confidence, tempo, control of the floor, yesterday disrupted all three, a veteran MP observes. Once you're corrected publicly like that, everyone listens differently. Not just to the Prime Minister. To the Chair, 1 p.m, the next PMQ looms. Attention shifts to the next Prime Minister's questions. Not excitement, dread. Because PMQs under Titan's Speaker is a different arena. No rambling, no rhetorical detours, no theatrical padding. Mistakes will be cut off instantly. And cameras will be ready. 2:15 p.m. The word control is redefined. Political editors begin using a new frame. Not can the PM control his party, but can he control the chamber under stricter enforcement? That's a far narrower and harsher test. One analyst says, this is how authority erodes, not in big collapses but in small corrections that accumulate. 3 p.m, cabinet confidence QITS. No public dissent. No leaks, but something subtle happens. Ministers become cautious in tone. Answers are shorter, briefings tighter, ambition restrained, caution spreads. And caution is the enemy of momentum. 4:10 p.m, the Speaker's power is now assumed. The most significant change is invisible. MPs now anticipate intervention. They self-censor, they slow down, they watch the chair constantly. The Speaker no longer needs to assert authority, it's already internalized. 5 p.m. Why this moment will last. This episode enters parliamentary memory for one reason. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't partisan. It wasn't dramatic. It was correct. And correctness is permanent. Future speakers will cite it. Future MPs will remember it. Future prime ministers will avoid repeating it. Which means this moment reshapes behavior long after headlines fade. 6:30 p.m, the final reality. By evening, the chaos narrative dissolves. What remains is more damaging, a sense that the Prime Minister must now operate under tighter constraints than before, not imposed by voters, not imposed by rivals, imposed by the House itself. And in British politics, when Parliament reasserts itself this publicly, it rarely does so only once. The lasting consequence. This wasn't the day Parliament lost control, it was the day it took it back. And while governments survive protests, scandals and polls, they struggle when the chamber itself becomes the enforcer. Because from this point forward, every answer, every pause, every misstep will be judged not by politics, but by procedure. This wasn't about one answer, it wasn't about one rule, it was about who truly commands Parliament. When the Speaker stepped in, the House reminded everyone, including Keir Starmer, that authority in Westminster is conditional, procedural, and never guaranteed. From now on, every session will be tighter, every answer shorter, every mistake more visible. The question isn't whether the Prime Minister was embarrassed. The question is whether he can adapt and reassert control under stricter rules and sharper scrutiny. So what do you think? Backhand index pointing down, was the Speaker right to draw the line? Or did it expose deeper weakness at the top? Backhand index pointing down, will this reset restore order or make governing even harder? Share this so others see what really happened inside Parliament today. Follow, because the next PMQs won't be routine.